Welcome to the Carl B. Phillips Show, hosted by gospel music industry veteran, recording artist, songwriter, producer, radio announcer, and actor, Carl B. Phillips. Join Carl as he talks with gospel recording artists, producers, songwriters, pastors, and other creatives about music, ministry, and life. Get ready for another great conversation on the Carl B. Phillips Show.
This week's guest on the Carl B. Phillips Show, middle school music teacher and gospel recording artist, Imelda Shoffner. Welcome to the Carl B. Phillips Show. I am Carl B. Phillips. Today's guest on the Carl B. Phillips Show is a middle school music teacher, minister of music, praise and worship leader, workshop facilitator. She's the owner of MEL LEE Cakes, and she recently released her debut single, Never Be Defeated. You see, she got a merch on now. She thought I didn't catch that. Please help me welcome, let me get it right, Imelda Shoffner. Did I get it right? Shoffner. Imelda Shoffner.
So close.
And I've been practicing too.
It's okay. It's all right.
So she told me I can call her Mel, so I'm good with that. I can get that one down.
Yes.
So as I stated, we're going to start with a question that has nothing to do with music.
Okay.
If you could invent an ice cream flavor, what ingredients would it have, and what would it be called?
If I can invent an ice cream flavor, what would it be? It would be, we would call it Chunk-a-Monk.
Chunk-a-Monk?
Chunk-a-Monk, because
Okay.
it's going to have cookie bits in it. It's going to be a vanilla base, and it's going to have some cookie bits, some caramel, some chocolate syrup, pecans. Yeah, Chunk-a-Monk. So it'd be like a butter pecan, cookies and cream kind of situation.
Might be a new addition to MEL LEE Cakes.
MEL LEE Cakes. Yes.
MEL LEE Cakes. Okay.
MEL LEE. Mm-hmm.
And it's spelled M-E-E. That's why I said MEL.
It's M-E-L.
M-E-L.
Then you got to spell it. It's M-E-L-L-E-E.
I don't
It's
know
a
what I
combo of
was
my
typing.
name.
I don't know how I was typing. I was doing some fancy typing. MEL LEE Cakes. MEL LEE. MEL LEE Cakes.
Mm-hmm.
So MEL LEE Cakes can now branch off and do some ice cream. MEL LEE Cakes ice cream.
Listen, I have a cousin that keeps trying to convince me to make her an ice cream cake. I said, girl, I don't want to make you an ice cream cake. There's just too much going on. I don't want the ice cream.
Get one of them old-fashioned churns and a bucket and make the ice cream.
No.
No, not
But
doing
I
all
did
that.
see somebody make some easy ice cream. I said, I can make that. That's the thing. I see things. I'm like, oh, I can make that. And then I try to make everything. But then I'm like, no, because somebody's going to see it and then they're going to want it. I'm not going to do it. No.
Hilarious. I recently saw you did an interview with my friend and brother, Dallas Tony D. Frazier. How
Mhm.
did the two of you meet?
Oh, gosh. I've known Dallas 20 years, I want to say.
Mm-hmm.
We just known him from being around church. He used to, so my home church, I used to be the secretary for it. And he would come and rent the building. And that's how I met him a gazillion years ago. I've known him for forever at this point. Yes. And he said, he always told me I was mean to him. I was not mean to him.
I can't
He
see
said
you
I was
being mean.
He said I was mean to him. I was like, I was not mean to you. I might have been a little blunt, a little straightforward with him, but he said I was mean. Don't believe it. Don't believe that.
One of the things the two of you have in common, both of you are out of New York.
Yes.
Talk about, now that you're in South Carolina, talk about the difference in northern and southern living.
So here's the deal. So I've been in South Carolina since I was 9 years old. So now I just tell people I'm a Southerner at heart now. I've been here way too long to even think northern. When my aunt and uncle were the ones who raised me. And so when they first got custody of me, it was culture shock.
Wow.
Because I was not used to people being so nice. You know, the whole good morning thing, it threw me. I said, why are y'all so nice? It really, at 9 years old, I was a true New Yorker, and I couldn't understand why all these country people were so nice, and I didn't trust any of them. Yeah, battle wounds. It was a mess. It
And
was a mess.
up north, we're always busy going, doing. In the south, is so laid back.
Right. And so my siblings still live up north. They live in Pennsylvania, but they were in New York until about 10 years ago. And people always ask, well, Melda, would you ever move back north? I'm like, no, I'm a Southerner at heart. There are too many people on the road up there. I don't want it. I am good being a little country girl at this point. Yes.
A little country girl.
Yes, I will be that girl because it's too many people in New York. There are too many people on that island. That's why they're so angry. They're too crunched up together. That's what the problem is.
And they always going somewhere.
Yes, go sit down somewhere. Just go have a seat. Rest your nerves.
Take a seat, sit down. Always. A
Yes,
couple of times that I've been to New York, it's like, when do people sleep?
they don't. They do not. That's the problem. They don't. Again, hence why they're all so angry. That's what it
No,
is.
no sleep and always crunched up together.
And there's no sun. And that's the thing. Even when I go to Pennsylvania, I say, y'all skies are great. I'm used to sunshine. Where is the sun? I like sun. Mm-mm. So I couldn't do northern living anymore at all.
You're also a lover of music. Who are some of your inspirations for pursuing music as a career?
Um, I always like to tell people I never wanted to pursue music.
Hmm.
It was never my intention, never really something, because I had an interview and somebody asked, when did you know that this was your thing? I said, I'm still trying to figure it out. Like there was no light bulb that went off. But as far as my inspirations, growing up, Israel Houghton was my favorite person.
Hmm.
And now I love Todd Delaney, Todd Galbraith, and Bonita Jones can do no wrong in my eyes. She is amazing. And I think I like those people because they do more intimate settings.
Hmm.
Like you don't have to go to the big arenas to go see them. I like the whole feel of intimate worship.
Hmm.
And I think I like it so much is because that's how I like to worship. And so inspiration wise, they're my inspiration. Um, but I'm still trying to figure out exactly every day I wake up, I'm like, girl, how did you become an artist? Because I promise you, this was not on my bingo card. It wasn't. In some kind of way, it got on the bingo card and got marked off on the bingo card. Here we are.
So
Here we are.
the bingo card had a Spanish teacher on it.
The bingo card was the Spanish teacher. The music teacher wasn't even on the bingo card. This is why I always say you make plans and God will turn your whole world topsy turvy. Because okay, let's just be very honest. Education was not on my bingo card. Everything everything that wasn't on my bingo card is now what's on my bingo card. It got fully marked off. And so we filled in a whole line. We've hit bingo. And none of it was my plan. None of
Hmm.
it was in my plan. When I went to college, because my bachelor's is in Spanish. That is what my specialization is Spanish.
Hmm.
And I said, oh, I'm gonna be an interpreter. I'm gonna go make all the money. That is what I had said going in the door. Well, actually going in the door, I said I was gonna be a doctor. And I hated the science department. That
Hmm.
freshman year told me I was not gonna be a doctor. But doing Spanish, I'm like, oh, I love this, but again, never education was never on my bingo card. I took the foundations of American education because I was going to minor in secondary education,
Hmm.
but I didn't even do that because the Spanish department, the education department kicked the Spanish department out because they wouldn't adhere to their rules. So I couldn't even get the minor in education.
Wow.
And so I came out of college, and the only job I could find was in education. And so I started out teaching English as a second language. And my third year in, and I would work all over the district.
Mm-hmm.
And so my third year in, the one of the Spanish teachers went out on maternity leave, and my superintendent asked if I would go to the high school and be her long-term sub, because I was the only person in the district with a degree in Spanish that could carry her
Wow.
class on. So I said, okay. So I went to be her long-term sub. She decided she wasn't coming back at the end of the school year, but the principal said that she didn't like my rapport with the students. I was too friendly with the students. So she said, no, I don't want her to be my Spanish teacher. Okay, cool, no problem. I had a job. I wasn't worried about it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, spring break of that next school year rolled around, and the Spanish teacher that she hired quit, walked off his job.
Wow.
And so she called the district office and tried to have them force me to come and work at the high school. And I said, oh, no, no, no. That's not how that's going down. You're going to give me the rest of his contract. And I went into that classroom, and she said, because the teacher that left, the kids hated him. You know how you see in movies where kids will put dirt in the teacher's coffee, do things to the teachers.
Mm-hmm.
These were literally the things they were doing to this man.
Wow.
Literally. And he quit. And so she had them call me to come in to teach Spanish. Well, to finish out the year, to finish out the school year for him. And she loved me so much. Same principal who said, no, no, no. She loved me so much. She begged me to apply for that job. And I applied, and I taught Spanish for 10 years at the high school
Wow.
level. Mm-hmm. And absolutely loved it. The superintendent at the time, she was like, Imelda, I think you should go into the Spanish department because it'll turn around the Spanish department. Because the department was so bad, colleges were writing back to the school district telling them that they were not preparing the students for college, for foreign
Wow.
language. And she said, and my superintendent was a Black woman. She said, I just feel like you'll be the one to turn that department around. It took me about 3 years, but completely turned it around to where they started calling back and say, who's teaching these kids Spanish? My students were exempt in college level Spanish.
Wow.
Then I got burned out and I left the classroom for 3 years. And I became the truancy officer for my school and the 504 coordinator. And one day I was in my office, minding my business, singing a song. It was end of the day, school was over. I was filing papers and singing a song. And my superintendent walked in the back door by my office. He heard me sing. He said, was that you singing? I'm like, yeah, that was me. I thought no more of it. The end of that school year, he came to me. He said, hey, I have a position at the middle school that
Mm-hmm.
no one has applied for. You want that job? He said, remember that day I heard you singing? I think you'll be great as a chorus teacher. That's how I ended up as a chorus teacher.
It's interesting because when I was reading your bio, it talked about you being a music teacher at the middle school in Johnson, South Carolina. Talk
Mhm.
about your approach to teaching music to your students.
So, again, remember, music is not my trade, like as a teacher, that's not my
Mm.
certification. So, all I did, I took my church background and just took it to the classroom. They get some music theory, but I treat my students as if they were a gospel choir at church.
Wow.
And so and the thing is, that music program was falling down. The teacher that had it before me, she had lost her passion for it. There was literally like 10 kids in the chorus.
Mm.
And when the superintendent offered me that job, he said, make it fun for them, make the kids want to be in it. Now I have like 50 students.
Wow.
I can't get rid of them, and they have to audition for my class because I created the advanced chorus class, and someone else is there to teach regular chorus. But I have the creme de la creme. But I treat them. Um, they had their spring concert last Thursday, and a parent came to me and said, "Your students don't sound like a normal middle school chorus. They're amazing, but I have very high expectations of them." And they have to sing. I don't do kiddie stuff. Like we rearranged Stevie Wonder's ass for them. and they
Okay.
sing it, and they sing in harmony, like we don't pity pat. I'm like, y'all gonna sing and you're gonna put your all into it, and they love it, and they get called upon a lot. I said, listen, I had to tell people, I had to turn people down. Like, I have a life outside of school, and y'all not gonna keep calling me all over the place to come running behind these kids. And so, but they're amazing. They are the most amazing group of kids I have ever had in my 16 years of teaching. I love them.
One of the challenges, a lot of schools have stopped music programs.
They have.
W- When you looked at, you're able to do music, what do you think that uh, it gives the kids that are able to do music versus kids that don't have music in school anymore?
I think for my students, it gives them a confidence in themselves
Mhm.
that they don't normally have. It makes them more cognizant of other things that are going on. And again, my classes, and I'm going to be honest, my class is not the normal classroom. It's not the normal classroom. Um, like on Fridays, I essentially turn my classroom into a therapy room,
Mhm.
and students come in and they decompress. We eat potato chips, and they tell me, they rate their week. They tell me what's on their heart, what's on their minds. So in my music class, my students get to have a place of reprieve, and what it helps do for them, because academics are so stressful now, and everything is
Yeah.
about data, 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 data. And so I think music programs and theater programs, those fine arts programs, allows students to just be. They don't have the pressure of the academics. And so it's a moment in which they don't have to think per se
Mhm.
about, what's next, what's the next test. And we have tests, we have all that, but they don't have stress when it comes to my test. They just know, like, okay, we got a test, and they'll knock it out. But I think music programs give students a sense of purpose, like those students who are in the band class, like to learn an instrument, it gives them a purpose, and it opens them up in ways that they probably wouldn't be open in any other atmosphere. And I
Mhm.
think that's why those arts programs are extremely important for students.
Not only within school, but I think like having choir, even in churches, it gives
Mhm.
you friendships.
Yes. You form bonds with people that you would never form bonds with.
Mhm.
And I have three different classes. And one of them, I have a little boy. There are two boys in that class, but this particular boy has been, and it's 16 of them, 16, it's 16 students in that class altogether. He officially has 14 big sisters.
Wow.
I know that outside of that classroom, had he never been in my chorus class, he wouldn't have the the group that he has now. And they love him. They're highly protective of him. Now they give him a lot of grief in the class, but and the thing is, it's a little white boy, but he has a class full of big black sisters. Black girls are his big sisters, and they love him. They love him to pieces, and that wouldn't be normal in any other setting because he wouldn't even be around them in
Right.
any other setting. Hmm.
Yeah, I think it's important that, um, especially because, like in the Detroit area, it's almost like we've lost generations of choir directors and choir singers because you don't have that music in school anymore. And you're involved as a minister of music, so you probably know where I'm about to go with this. When people
Hmm.
come to your choir rehearsal, ooh, you got to start from scratch and
Scratch,
teach.
scratch, and people are not consistent anymore.
Yeah.
When I was growing up, we wanted to be there. I remember there was an excitement on Saturday for Sunday morning. And, and choirs were huge. People wanted to be there. It was like, yeah, we came here for God, but it was also like social hour.
Right.
You look forward to those times together. And that's just not a thing anymore.
No.
Like my church, it's an older, it's an older church. Well, it's growing now, with younger people. But when I initially came 5 years ago, the demographic was about 55, 60% of the church was 65 and up.
Mm.
So my choir, all of my choir members, like I'm literally the youngest person on my choir, and I'm 43. you know, um, and and kids aren't interested in church choir anymore. They're not really
No.
interested in church anymore. And that makes me sad because I loved being on the youth choir. I loved, you know, being able to finally grow up so I could sing on the adult choir. But that's not a thing anymore. And
No.
I heard Jermaine Dupri said, he said what's lacking in the R&B world now is that these people have not grown up in
In
church choirs
church.
and they don't have that anymore.
It
Like
it
we learn how to harmonize through church choir.
mm-hmm.
He said
You
that's just not a thing, and it's the truth, and it's a sad truth.
a very sad truth. There's a young man out of Detroit, Trent Shelby, is part of Shelby Five. He did a
Hmm.
song for his wife called "Never Knew Love Like This Before," and
Hmm.
people all over the country were doing the challenge. And I was saying like R&B needs what he's doing.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
R&B because that since maybe what Fantasia, we haven't heard those kind of gutsy singers in R&B.
I don't know. I'm probably gonna get in trouble for saying this, but I feel like there's a generation of everybody wants to sound like Beyonce. Like there's no individuality, no
Yeah.
uniqueness in voices anymore. Like everybody wants to sound the same. How the kids say everybody want to sing in cursive. Just sometimes just no, just don't. But there's no sense of uniqueness. Like I don't want to be a part of the crowd. I want, but you're right. No one has those emotions that church singers have
Yeah.
you could tell like, boy, I knew you grew up in the church. It's just not a thing anymore.
I've been watching this season of American Idol, and
Hmm.
they got some real church singers this time around. Uh,
Hmm.
they did a show about faith that CC Winans was on, but the singers were just coming bringing that church sound. Uh,
Hmm.
Even last year, they had like three church guys: Odell Button Jr., Roman Collins, and I forgot the other guy's name. There's a remnant that loves it, but it's like scattered so far and wide and in between that you don't get it often. Like you said, everybody want to do. Somebody posted recently they was listening to a gospel show and then they realized gospel had gotten so sexy.
And it is. It is. And it makes you feel like the whole being set apart. Like you're in this world, but you're not of this world.
Hmm.
And we've the church, instead of influencing the world has influenced the church,
Yeah.
and everything has changed, like completely done a 360. Church doesn't look like church, and so the singers doesn't look like church anymore. And you're right, it's sultry, it's all the things, and I'm like, so exactly what are we drawing? Like it could be a little confusing.
I think it's also a thing of where we went through generations. A few generations ago, that said, my mama made me go to church. I'm not going to make my kids go to church. And we
Yep.
can see that now.
Yep.
Then we're also dealing, and I'm sure you see this in school, with a generation that always wants to know why.
Hmm.
Why this? Why we got to do it this way? You always have to explain the why. I mean, I've seen young people that are hungry and thirsting after God. Maverick City, of course, has opened up a lot of uh, gospel for a lot of people. A lot of gospel now is multicultural. It's almost like
Right.
we've lost some of our
Gospel.
culture.
We've lost gospel. We've lost that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Hmm.
I recently saw a video of you doing a hymn. How
Hmm.
important are hymns to you?
Okay. So I love that question because I grew up in the church, so I know all the hymns. Are hymns my normal go-to? No, but every now and again, when they rise up in me, I gotta bring them out. Um, and I do like a good hymn. So there's like during praise and worship, Dallas calls me a master remixer. I am because I hear so much when I'm singing.
Mhm.
And so it's nothing for me to tag a hymn to the end of a song, but I'm learning to embrace hymns more because, like you said, we're losing that gospel feel so much. And I know that my church is an older generational church. And so, yes, I can do Ty Delaney, Todd Galbraith, Bonita Jones. I could do that all day long, which is a more contemporary feel of gospel, but I still got to be able to catch my older saints,
Right.
pull them in. And so, I'm learning to go back to my roots in that regard and pull back those songs that I grew up singing and I know them front and backwards because this is what every Sunday was for me. And so I'm like, Imelda, you can't throw it away.
Right.
So go back and pick it up. Pick up who you are. Pick up what frames you. And you can integrate what frames you into who you are now. But the hymns they are important because again, we've lost the black gospely feel of the gospel, and not many people are holding on anymore.
Right.
And it's like, okay, we just give up. Like one of my students, so I play gospel in my class. Like
Mhm.
my kids know I'm a gospel artist. They understand all the things. And so there's nothing for me to pull up, some gospel. And so the other day, who is it? Brandon, I can't remember his last name, but he does the trap gospel.
Oh,
Is it Jones?
Brandon P. Something like that.
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah, I love
And
his
so
music.
love is music. But I have a student in my class. Remember, I teach my course class are only seventh and eighth graders, so they're 12 and 13, okay? And I have a boy in my class. I promise you, he's going to grow up to be somebody's elder. I know he is. He is going to be an elder. And he looked at me because it was playing. He said, Miss Shoffner, turn it off. And this is the 13-year-old. He said, turn that off. He said, I don't want my gospel to sound like that.
Wow.
And that's the second student that I've had to say to me, I don't like gospel to sound like what I listen to on the radio. I want gospel to sound like gospel. And so there is a young generation of kids coming up who don't want and I understand that gospel was birthed out of younger people not wanting to conform to the older people's music.
Right.
I get it. So I know what it was birthed from. But how far away do we move from what got us to where we are? And and sometimes, and now granted, I like it. I like his music, but sometimes I feel with some things. I used to always say years ago. I said, "Is it gimmicky?" Because we do gimmicks to draw people, but is that what's going to keep them and sustain them?
Right.
Like, well, okay, you got them, you did whatever it took to get them, but are you going to sustain them with that? And to hear a child say, "I don't want my gospel to sound like that," it made me take a step back and think, you know. And honestly, I play my music to my kids first to see if they like it, because we're working on a new single. And I'm like, y'all like this song? And I knew they liked it because they came back the next day singing it. Mhm.
One of the things that I've learned over time, especially dealing with music, that gospel music has a tendency to reflect the sounds of the times. You know,
Absolutely.
when you look at the history of gospel music, going back to Thomas Dorsey,
Hmm.
people didn't want the blues in the church.
Right. He was a rebel. Mahalia Jackson was a rebel. Like,
Yeah.
Lord, they just thought they were heathens.
And me being from Detroit, you had the Winans,
Hmm.
Clark Sisters,
Yes.
Commission, Vanessa Bell
Right.
Armstrong, all rebels. But now they're almost like considered, the goats of gospel music,
Hmm.
where you have, a lot of secular people talking about how they listen to, I think Tank was talking recently how when he was growing up, he wanted to be Mitchell Jones for a commission. You know,
Right.
yeah.
Right.
So I guess, it depends on, where we are in the music and how do approach it in reaching the different generations. But I definitely
Hmm.
agree that we can't afford to lose that gospel sound. So it's up to your generation, my generation, to make sure that it's heard.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so, and I'm cognizant of that as I write my songs
Mhm.
because I don't want to go so far left to where I leave behind what got me here.
Right.
And so, and I do, and even, and let's be real, even as a minister of music, it's hard to find songs for the choir. I'm like, Lord,
Oh
I
yeah.
can't find those songs for the choir.
I'm I'm
And
I'm
so,
I'm a choir director also, and I understand the
right,
struggle. And
yes, because we've gone so far away, you know. And somebody said, like, the praise team replaced the choir. But no, I still like a good old choir. I like that good old three-part harmony, four-part harmony, whatever it's gonna take. And that's gonna run you down. I want a choir song. And the fact that Ricky Dillard and J.J. Hairston are the only ones holding on the choirs, James Hall, but you don't have people like, what about the choir?
right. You know,
Like,
be
who was it? I was listening to an interview that Travis Green had. He said, I'm and it was funny, but it was true. He said, I'm sick of these praise and worship songs. Where's the choir songs? He said, I'm talking to me.
it's something about having a choir, having 20, 30 voices that impact a soloist that's driving a song.
Yes.
It
Yes.
change the atmosphere.
Right. And now, you have to reach back to those old James Cleveland songs and stuff like that because nobody's producing anything now for the choir. Like they're just throwing the polo choir away.
It's a few out there, but we kind of talked about it earlier when it comes to the commitment, especially with church choirs. It's hard to get,
Mhm.
if you can get 20 people to come out to a choir rehearsal, you better shout.
I'm holding on to a solid 12, 15 people.
Yeah.
Holding on hard. That's it.
Unless like there's some mega churches that may have, you know, a 50, 100 voice choir. But for most of us, like you said, if you can get 15 people, be
That's
happy.
it.
Yeah.
That is it. 15 consistent people
Yeah.
that are going to show up.
Yeah.
Because
But that,
the ones that are not going to show up.
yeah, you're going to have those. Uh,
Yeah.
I've been at my church. This would be my 49th year. I've been serving with my choirs and everything the whole time that I've been there. Um, I've had to loosen things a little bit because everybody got a reason why they can't be there.
Yes.
Back in the
I have a
day,
choir member right now. I wait. I know every Sunday morning. Every other Sunday morning, I'm going to get a text message about 20, 30 minutes before church start. Hey, girl, I'm not going to make it. That's rough.
it wears choir directors out.
Yes.
There is some young choirs that I'm hearing. There's two choirs out of Detroit. One is Larry Callahan and SOG, Select to
Hmm.
God. They've really put out some great choir music. Another young man, Carlos Whitlow, and Metropolitan. I mean, he put out a churchy song. We still have like Michael Fletcher Corral, Thomas
Hmm.
Whitfield Company. They're still doing music. Um, there's a few choirs that have come out the city. Chicago still has some great choirs. Dexter Walker, I love his song. Be fast, and they doing all that movement. I can't do all that because I'm like you. I have a mixed generation choir, and they'll
Hmm.
tell me, Brother Phillips, you either want me to sing, clap, or rock. I'm not doing all three.
Listen, everybody on my choir, and I'm not exaggerating, is 60 and up. And then here I am, the choir director.
I,
Yeah.
I'm I'm fortunate that I do have some young people, in their 30s and 40s, so that gives me the energy. But
Mhm.
I understand when you have those older choir members, and they like, why we gotta sing this young stuff? Why we gotta? Can we sing some hymns? Oh, God.
Now, mine, thankfully, they like a good choir song, but, and they're faithful, but at the same time, you got to meet them where they are.
Yeah,
I know that 70-year-old voice can't do what my 43-year-old voice can do, and my 43-year-old voice can't do what a 20-year-old voice can do. My soprano is not the same anymore.
Right.
And, because, my pastor has all these grandiose ideas. And I'm like, you do realize that everybody over there is 70 years old. They not about to be out here singing like Ricky Dillard and New G. It's not going to happen, sir. First off, they can't breathe through half of it. Stop that.
Can't sing that high anymore. You know,
No.
the energy is different. So I've learned I have to kind of adjust for the energy. You're looking at, you're in your 40s. I'm in my 60s. I'm like fast songs. Let me get another director to do that.
Listen, listen. Some days I'm like, let me get another director because let me tell you something. I tell people the heartbeat. My last name is Shoffner. It is very German. And when you hear German, you don't think, so the other side of me take over. And I'm like, y'all know I'm biblically challenged when it comes to that super, super fast stuff. I can't do it. I can't do it. No, the other side of me that came out and that's it. They done ran me down.
We're talking a little bit, you're a minister of music, worship leader, workshop facilitator. Talk about the importance of the role of music in the church setting.
Listen, if you ain't gonna have no music in the church, you might as well go to the house. Just just turn it on your phone because what's the point? You know, when Saul was going through it, what did he do? Call
Call
David.
David.
He needed and the music is what soothed him. When they went around the walls of Jericho, the horns had to blow. You know,
Right.
music is important in every setting. Every setting it's important. And so a church without music, you might well close the doors. Because what are you doing? You got to have something to till the ground for
Right.
the word to fall in. And if you don't have something to till that ground, because let's be real, the music is like when you go fishing. When you go fishing, you need the right kind of bait to attract whatever kind of fish you're fishing for. And music is the bait. And that sermon is what's going to bring them, is going to reel them on in and keep them. But if you don't have any bait, because some people are only going to come to church for the music.
Right.
They're only going to come for the music. And after a while, because sometimes the music, that's why I always make sure whatever we sing is biblically sound, because the music may be the only sermon that they listen to. They may sleep through the sermon. So, but it's critical for the church. It is absolutely critical for the church. And if you don't want it, then there's a problem. And your church ain't gonna grow because young people are gonna be like, ill is boring. I'm not coming. So they're not gonna come. So if a church has no young people in 10 to 15 years, it's gonna die.
The church will age out. I remember reading an article about that. A lot of churches are aging out because they're not attracting young families. So
Right.
I definitely agree that you have to have a strong music department. Um, and someone posted this earlier today about the praise and worship team had created a great atmosphere of worship, and the pastor didn't preach because of the atmosphere of worship, but his deacon board told him that he'd better not do that again. That he better preach because people come to church for the word. Yeah.
Sometimes I don't agree with that because if the atmosphere is conducive, then maybe all the pastor needs to do is do an altar
Altar
call
call.
and pray for these people and get
Mm,
them what they need.
yeah.
Because the ground has been fertilized and opened up. So maybe just invite them in and do the prayer. Pray with them, touch and agree with them. Because sometimes that's all they need. Because let's
Yes.
be real, them deacons probably sleep through the sermon anyway. Stop it.
It,
Stop it.
it's challenging. You know, I'm sure you understand this as a minister of music, finding that balance of creating the atmosphere for the Word of God.
Yes.
And a lot of times, as ministers of music, choir directors, we can get caught up in the music, forgetting what our purpose is. And that purpose, again, creating the atmosphere. Would you agree?
Listen, I agree 100%. So my former pastor who passed away, when he made me the minister of music at my home church, he said to me, I should never have to get up and sing behind the choir. He
Wow.
said, because if I have to get up and sing, that means you didn't do your job as the minister of music to set the atmosphere for this house. And I took that to heart. And I would pray, I would fast and pray over every piece of music we sang. And my pastor and I think it's ultra important that ministers of music and the pastors have a real relationship.
Right.
My pastor and I were so simpatico that it got to the place the songs that I chose for Sunday morning were literally his scriptures. And I never even knew what he was preaching. But it got to the place, but we had a relationship, a real relationship. It wasn't you're my employee. It was a father-daughter kind of situation. And so um you build that relationship and then you ask God to grace you for the job that you have and anoint you for the job that you have. And that's when it begins to work. But that has always been my thing. When he taught me that, and I was in my 20s when I became the
Mhm.
minister of music for my home church. And I carry that with me now. If the pastor have to get up, because a pastor shouldn't have to get up and sing himself happy
Right.
after he done sung 33 songs. And he still got to get up and sing himself happy. That's a problem. That means somebody didn't pray over the music. Somebody. Now, if he gets up and he want to tag on to the end of that song because he done got happy enough that he need a piece of it, that's one
Mhm.
thing. But we come and sing a whole nother song because you just ain't go sit down, go back to the drum board and pray some more.
One of the things that I had to learn as a minister of music, and I start sharing this with young directors coming along, you need to understand the sound that the pastor wants in the house. I know,
Yep.
you and I, we can like, hip hop, we can like all that, but what is the sound that the pastor wants for his house?
Mm-hmm.
If he wants a traditional sound, don't come in there with a bunch of praise and worship.
Right.
Give him the sound that he wants for his house. And a lot of us, we don't want to hear that.
Right. So transparent moment. Let's be real. We're here now. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. And sometimes pastors don't know what they want. Can we?
Yeah.
They don't. They want who you are, but then they want you to come in and they want to change who you are. Now you knew who I was before I ever came in here. You knew what I brought to the table because you've been watching me for years. So you knew who I am. You know who I am. And one of the things my pastor now, the pastor that I work up under now, we and I'm gonna be transparent, very open, very honest. We butted heads a
Mm,
bit with the music. And because he kept saying to me, I want to draw young people. I said, well, we can't draw the young people with near the cross. It ain't gonna happen.
right.
So I said, you gotta give me. And he kept saying, you keep singing CCM. I said, first off, this ain't CCM.
Hmm.
CCM is what the white people sing in their church. I don't sing CCM. I said, we sing contemporary gospel. I said, but you keep saying you want to draw a demographic. You're not going to draw a demographic singing all hymns and all songs from 1979 before I was ever born. It
Right.
ain't going to work. I said, now I'm mixing the old with the new, but we had to have many a conversations because he's a new pastor there, and they brought me in behind him because he knew me as I was growing up. So you knew the singer, but you didn't know me, you know.
Right.
And so he was there about 6, 7 months before he called me in. And I'm like, you are trying to change who I am at a base level. That's I'm not gonna allow that to happen because I had to pray very hard to become this person. And Again, that's why I go back to relationship. You got to have that relationship, because my former pastor at my home church, his exact words to me were, because before I became the minister of music, I was just a choir member. I was just a soprano in the choir.
Mm,
Didn't really ever have to sing. Didn't know. Couldn't even tell you how to pull parts out of a song. And our minister of music left us, and we were without a minister of music for about 6, 7 months. And
mm,
I would cry every Sunday because it bothered me so much that I felt like the music ministry of my church was floundering. And he said to me, he came to me, and I went to him crying one Sunday. I said, "You have to do something because we're drowning here." The next Sunday, he said, "You just hold on." I said, "Okay." But it was bothering me.
mm.
And he came to me the next Sunday. He said, "God says that you are the minister of music for this house, and you are to set the sound for this house."
Wow.
And then I went to God. I said, "Now, you done told this man this, sir. You better sharpen his ear. Give me an ear, because at that point, all I've ever done was had to sing soprano. I couldn't tell you how to sing a tenor note, I could play around with, slide into an alto note by mistake." And so I said, "God, you're gonna have to tune me for this. If this is what you've called me to do, now you're gonna have to anoint me for what you've called me to do." And I was the minister of music at my home church for almost 15 years
Wow.
until I knew it was time to leave. And so when I came to the new church, I was kind of swallowed up in the music ministry. It's like, "Oh, Mel, come help." I became a help. And then eventually he made me the worship leader. Now you put me out front, and then you fought me at every turn for every song. And but what I realized, I'm like, it's because it's not your preference. It's one thing to say I want a certain sound. It's another thing to despise something because you just don't like it. Like, for example, I am not a quartet music fan,
Mm.
but I will give you some good old quartet music because I know that's what draws some of the people. So I have to put my preferences aside to give the people what they need to get closer to God. But he just hated everything because he doesn't like contemporary gospel. So everything he wanted was literally James Cleveland. It was, I would look at the dates on songs. I said, "Do you know I wasn't even born when this song was created?" And I'm like, if I wasn't even a thought or a twinkle in my mama's eye when this song came out, what is this song going to do for the people, for the 20-year-olds in this church right now?
One of the things that I've come to realize as a leader, we have to do songs that people are now hearing on the radio.
Yeah.
You know, I can
Yeah.
get up and do uh, Gyra by Maverick City. The people go in.
Mhm.
I can do
Right.
When I Call Your Name. We can do that. The people go,
Right.
because those are the songs that this generation is hearing. Um,
Right.
but also have that balance to know how to, like you said, how to segue out of something like that into uh, a hymn or something like that. You know,
Right.
it's important to have to know that balance and then to have a pastor that's open and trusting you to do what you do.
Exactly. So this is where we fought because he wants everything churchy, 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 churchy. I said, "Well, praise teams aren't churchy." I said, "Now we'll give you a little churchy something every now and again." I said, "But that's not generally what praise teams do." I said, "But the thing is, you have a choir that I'm giving you everything churchy with.
Hmm.
So at the top of the service, let that be whatever's going to draw your younger people, because you're going to church them to death with the choir as soon as praise and worship is over." I'm like, I'm giving you what you want, but you wanted the whole entire service to the
Yeah,
point that he wasn't even in prayer. He wouldn't come in church during praise and worship.
but that speaks volume to the congregation that you're not participating in praise and worship.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
and I get it. There's churches that that, like I was saying before, the the sound that the pastor hears or feels he needs to hear to feel like he's been to church. If you have a pastor that's not open to different sounds, it can be challenging, and
Very
it
much
could
so.
be draining on you because you know, for one, finding a lot of those churchy sounding songs now
It ain't
is hard,
happening.
and then when you find them, the energy that it takes. like you said, if you got choir members that are 20 years older than you, they're not going to give you that energy.
No,
You
they
know.
can't breathe through the song. They tired. These are the same people that were like, "Can you just bring us some chairs? Because we have a stage." Because gone are the days of choir stands.
Yeah.
We have a stage. These people like, Mel, can you just put us some chairs on the stage? No, y'all got two songs to sing. Stand here to sing these two songs and get off the stage. They wanted chairs.
Yeah.
So I'm like, so I don't know what you think you about to get out of these people. Yeah.
It,
So it
it
can be frustrating.
yeah. Very frustrating when, you have a direction you want to go, and then, the choir members now, this is going to be challenging, and it also depends on your musician staff.
Oh, Father alone. And we'll understand it better by and by. And we will understand it better, especially when you have musicians that don't learn the music.
Yeah, that can be a challenge. Now, I've been blessed to have worked with some great musicians at my church, so I
Hmm.
can't complain. Um, but we've even gone through a shift. My pastor passed after 46 years. He passed on. His son, who was our musician, is now our pastor. So
Okay.
that transition has been kind of different for me because I was under one pastor for so long, and
Hmm.
I'm the minister of music, and his son used to be under me. Now he's my pastor.
And then it doesn't help when the pastor is musically inclined. Them the ones that get on your nerves. Because when they
Well,
know what the music's supposed to be, you like, Lord help us.
he's learning what he wants, but we're bringing in musicians that are like 20 years old. So,
Okay.
trying to, and we're like you. We have a mixed congregation, and they'll get up and sing a song. Like one Sunday, somebody did something, and I told a musician, this song came out in 1979. And he's only
See
20
what I'm
years old.
saying? I wasn't even born in 79. It was 2 more years before I came on the scene. You know, and 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 that can be a challenge. And and you have these 20-year-old musicians who will come in with the MacBook with all the tracks uploaded. Now we got to wait for you to shuffle through all these tracks. What is the drummer here for? I'm that girl. The drummer can hold the beat, put that track.
But
Some of
one
that stuff make me crazy.
one thing I love about a track, the old people ain't got to clap because the track gonna keep the song on beat.
Oh,
The drummer
Jesus.
can't drag the song.
Well, okay, yeah, you're right. You're right. Because boy, we had one that just would speed up everything. Like, well, where are we running to? I don't know where we're going.
I have a question for you. Outside
Mhm.
of gospel music, what song brings back childhood memories?
Ooh, outside of gospel music, what song brings up? I know this is gonna sound so crazy, but every time I hear this, I think about my daddy. You ready? Good night, sweetheart. Well, it's time to go. Bo, 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 bo. My daddy loves songs like that. So anything like that, I'm excited. Anything like that, I am excited.
Now,
Yes.
who is that song by?
Don't get me telling you tales on here, Carl. I don't know. My daddy used to be like, sing this song. He called me Monkey. Sing this song, Monkey. Okay. But in the Temptations, my favorite song is just my imagination.
Running
I
away with
said,
me.
yes. I said, no, they were stalkers. No one knew it, but they were stalkers. They were singing about being stalkers. But I like that song.
Each day through my window, I watch
I
it.
watch her as she's
She's passing.
uh-huh. Mhm. He was a stalker. That's what she should have been worried. He done created a whole relationship in his mind, and she probably didn't even know his name. It was just my imagination running away
Running
with
away.
me. He had ran away because he was a stalker. Nobody knew it. Nobody wants to tell the truth. That's that's what it was. Yeah.
Ooh, okay. You, oh boy. let me get back to some other questions.
Okay, come on.
You like to bake. Tell us about your baking company.
So Melly Cakes was birthed during COVID.
Mm-hmm.
One of my friends opened up a seafood restaurant, and I said, "Hey, well, what's the dessert for the people for the grand opening?" He said, "I have none." I said, "Well, I'm gonna bake you a pound cake so you can get people some dessert." His wife picked up the pound cake, and of course, she didn't know me, so she tasted the pound cake before she put it in the restaurant. Tasted the pound cake, called me within 20 minutes, say, "Hey, I need 3 more of these cakes."
Wow.
And I began selling my cake in their restaurant. And people, he called me one day. He said, "I don't know if you're putting crack in this cake. I don't know what you're doing." He said, "But people are coming to this restaurant just for my cake." He had people who would sit and wait on me to bake fresh cake and bring. A lady sat there one day for 2 hours waiting on me to bake cake, to bring cake to the restaurant. And that's how Melly Cakes was birthed, you know. And it was so wild because, again, it wasn't on my bingo card. Um, I'm a self-taught baker because my aunt that raised me, she taught me to cook, and she taught me to cook very well. But she didn't bake because she was diabetic. So
Mm.
I was like, I want to. So I was like, I want to learn how to bake. So I would just piddle around in the kitchen. And her sister-in-law taught me some basics and gave me her mother's pound cake recipe.
Mm.
And that's how it was birthed. And now um I had to go on kind of a sabbatical. I'm like, y'all are wearing me out. I have a real daytime job. And y'all think all I'm doing is walking around baking cake. But it's doing what it does. God has anointed my hands for it. And it has been a major and great financial help to me. Um, and it's something I love to do. Do I want a bakery? Mm-mm, because I don't want to lose that love for it. So I like the small scale stuff, but yeah, I bake you up a good old pound cake, good old piece of pie, wedding cake.
So my ex-wife was a baker, and one thing
Hmm.
that I'm watching her bake, you got to put a pound of butter in a pound cake.
Hmm. Hmm.
If you don't put a
It's expensive.
if you don't put a
The
pound of
days of,
butter in there, it ain't a
it
pound
ain't
cake.
no pound cake. No. And I tell people, I say, y'all know how much eggs and butter cost? Guess what? The days of a $25 pound cake, that is not a reality no more.
Right.
Because if a dozen of eggs is $5.72, and I'm going to use half of that dozen in your pound cake, I can't give you a $25 cake, buddy. But yeah, I will bake up a cake for you in a heartbeat. And Dallas's favorite is the peach cobbler.
Okay, now if you're gonna do peach cobbler, tell me how you make your dough.
So mine is more of a cakey situation.
Okay.
And the first time I brought it to the radio station to Dallas. I said, "Hey, you want some peach cobbler?" He looked at it real funny. He was like, "Why the crust look like this?" I said, "Because it's more, of a cakey kind of situation." He tasted it, and that was it. Hooked. Most people are hooked on it. So it's more of a cake. I don't do crust like the pie crust. I don't do that.
Okay.
It's a cakey. So I it's flour and sugar and milk, and I brown butter and then pour that batter on top of it and then lay those peaches through it. And it bakes up into this, for people that like crust, they will like this because you just get that crusty, cakey, situation in every bite. They love it.
You're gonna have me down there in Georgia, South Carolina, Augusta, just to eat some peach cobbler. Me and Dallas.
Listen, the next time you come, let me know you coming and I got you. I got you. I would definitely whip one up for you. It doesn't take long to make it either. Next time you're in town, you let me know and
I will
I
have to
will
let
hook
you
you
because
up.
peach cobbler is my favorite. Now I love me some peach cobbler.
It's pretty good. They like it a lot.
You recently released your debut single, and you wearing your merch. Never Be Defeated. What's the story behind the song?
Never Be Defeated. I wrote it back in 2019.
Hmm.
Um, spring break. It was actually spring break. It was April 4th of 2019. No, 2020. And I was sitting at my dining room table and I was doing my morning devotion. And I was reading Romans 8:1, for there's therefore no condemnation to those who are in Christ Jesus. And I was reading that. And what happened, a lot of my songs I get in my sleep.
Mhm.
So I'll wake up 3, 4 o'clock in the morning and I will sing the ashiest voice note. Oh, they said, if anybody got a hold of my phone and heard the voice notes of the songs I'm trying to catch while I'm asleep, oh, they're awful. But I caught that voice note. And then when I woke up that morning and I did my devotion and I was reading that scripture, it all came together. And I sat at my dining room table and I wrote Never Be Defeated. And one of my friends, Calvin, we had rehearsal that day for the COVID praise team. And I said, hey, he's a musician. He plays the piano. He played the piano for my former church. And I said, listen, God gave me a song this morning. Can you kind of play what I'm hearing? So I sang the song for him and he gave me the skeleton sketch of Never Be Defeated.
Mhm.
And I took it to a friend and asked if he would produce it. And he tried to completely change my song.
Wow.
His words to me were, sometimes they're not going to be what, just every song that God gives you won't always be exactly what he gave you. And I was like, well, why would he give it to me if it ain't going to be what he gave me? Like, that doesn't make sense. And so for 2 years, I sat on it.
Mhm.
And then my producer is actually out of Detroit, Gabriel Carter. Um, he and I met at a conference. This year would be 10 years ago. Ty Tribbett did a conference in Columbia. He and I met, and I tell everybody, God ordains things. Again, they may not be on your bingo card, but they're on his. He ordains things, and I met him by happenstance. Well, not by happenstance. It was all God. Met Gabe. And then we became Facebook friends, and that was it. We didn't even exchange phone numbers.
Mhm.
We just became Facebook friends. And one day, Gabe posted something on Facebook, and I said something. He said, hey, Mel, I should get you on the track. I said, hey, you should produce my music. This is what I say. But you know, you just talking trash to people, you know.
Right.
And he inboxed me. He said, send me the songs. I was like, what? And I sent him Never Be Defeated along with two other songs. One of the ones, which is actually going to be the next single soon, coming out very soon. Um, I sent him Never Be Defeated. He sent me the music back in 2 days. I sent him that
Wow.
skeleton sketch that I had of it. 2 days, he sent me that music back. When I opened up that music, I boohoo cried
Mhm.
because it is what I heard when God gave me the song. It was literally what I heard, the changes and all. And what he did, he took the skeleton, he took my vocals out of that and laid it on top of his track so I would hear how the song would actually go. And I cried and cried and cried. And I called him. I said, I can't believe that you did this. This is amazing. Let's do it. He said, okay. And so we were making plans. And my older sister was my best friend.
Mhm.
We talked every day on FaceTime, 3, 4, 5 times a day. My students knew who my sister was because she would call me on FaceTime during my class and be like, Imelda, let me see your kids. Like they knew who my sister was. And she passed away.
Mhm.
And I fell into a deep depression. Like a month after Gabe had given me the song, I
Mhm.
fell into a deep depression for 2 years.
Wow.
I sat on that song for 2 years. So for 4 years total, I sat on Never Be Defeated. And last year, December, my students had their Christmas concert. Not 24, but 23. My students had their Christmas concert.
Mhm.
And here's the funny thing. None of the teachers at the school knew that I sang. They just knew I was a chorus teacher, but nobody knew that I sang. And so I ended up singing at the Christmas concert because we weren't taking up enough time. So I sang, and one of the teachers said, if you sing like that, why are you here as a teacher? Like, we love you, but why are you here? And I said, oh, I said, but you know what? I have music that I've written. Maybe this summer I'll go ahead and make that song. And did never called Gabe, never said anything. And then May, my students had their concert. And I sang something again at that concert. And that teacher came to me again. She said, when are you putting out music, Imelda? Like, what is really going on? I said,
Mhm.
girl, I'm going to make that this summer's goal. Well, the next day, Gabe sent me a text. He was like, yo. I was like, hey. He said, I was going through my catalog in my rotation, and your song came up. He said, Melda, it's time to put this song out.
Wow.
And I hadn't even spoken to him about it. We hadn't spoken in months at that point. I said, okay. We talked on a Sunday. He was like, where do I need to come? Augusta? I'm like, yeah, you'll come to Augusta. In my mind, I never thought that phone call was a confirmation of that, he was coming. We were talking on Sunday. Monday afternoon, he was here from Detroit.
Oh, wow.
He was here on that Tuesday. Monday was July 1st. Tuesday was July 2nd. Last summer, we went into the studio at a church here in Augusta. I laid that song in 2 hours, same backgrounds and all. In 2 hours, we completed that song. He went home, and that was July 2nd. He was gone July 3rd. August 17th, that song was out.
Wow.
But it was birth in a hard season for me.
Mm.
COVID, and then sometimes, we're stuck in a rut, and we don't think that we're good, we're no good. And me and my feelings, and me feeling like I wasn't good enough for God, he birthed that song in me. Sometimes we get so bogged down in self, and we think that we've done so much that God can't use us, and God doesn't care about us. And he has to send a reminder that no matter what you think about yourself, I'm still the one who has the final say. And so he was like, so whatever guilt this is that you're wallowing in, and it wasn't like I had done anything, but it was whatever this is that you're wallowing, whatever this imagination is, there is no condemnation. You're mine, and you're not defeated. And that's how that song was birthed. But I had to go through the 4 years of trials and strife to be able to sing that song and mean that song.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's where Never Be Defeated came from.
Wow. I love that testimony. So what's next for you?
Well, we had, like I said, new music is on the way. Because at this point, we might as well give y'all a whole album, huh?
Might as well.
We
And some
might as
cake.
well make an album. And so I'm writing now. Like I said, when I sent Never Be Defeated to Gabe, I sent 3 songs. And so and it was so wild because and what I realized, that was a yes that I finally had to give over to God,
Hmm.
because it had been prophesied to me since I was 12 years old. But I didn't think that I was good enough to be an artist.
Wow.
I didn't think that I had the vocal capabilities to be an artist. I didn't think my voice was good enough. And it was prophesied. 3 different prophets said it. And actually, when I was 12, we had a workshop at my home church. And the Andrea Williams School of Music in Augusta, Andrea Williams came to my church and she conducted a workshop. And my aunt made me help her bring all of her stuff in. Because, little kids, we were voluntold to do everything.
Right.
So I helped her bring all of her stuff in. And so she starts the workshop up, and she's teaching us this song. And she said, hey, you that helped me bring my stuff in, come and sing the song. She didn't know if I could sing or not.
Hmm.
So I sang the song. We had the concert that next day. She went to my aunt and uncle and told them, and I was 12 years old. I'll never forget it. She told my aunt and uncle, she said, listen, if you pursue a record deal for her right now, she'll make it. She'll make you very rich at 12. My aunt and uncle were singers. My aunt, if you close your eyes, you would think you would listen to Albertina Walker sing. She had the
Wow.
exact same voice. Ridiculous. My uncle was an amazing singer. He played by ear, the whole nine. And my aunt laughed when she told her, this girl can get a record deal. And she was like, you're right. So little things like that plant seeds, make you feel like you're not good enough. And I didn't, my mindset was, yeah, I'm good enough for Sunday morning church, but who wants to sit and listen to me sing a whole album? That's what my mindset was. And so that's when people are like, oh, what made you pursue music? I didn't, because I didn't think I was good enough to pursue music.
Hmm.
All I know was God had been downloading songs into me. And he told me the directive was, put this out for the world, because people need to be able to take this and run with it.
Hmm.
So me doing what I'm doing, it's not me pursuing a career in music. It's me being obedient to the voice of God. So my whole objective is when I put every song that I put out, all I know is God said it's for the nations, for them to be able to take it. And because so none of the songs are gonna be really hard. It's gonna be what you can take and sing, and but it'll be impactful at the same time. And so I'm writing now, and when I finally, like I said, when I finally gave God that yes, it was like the floodgate opened up all over again because my writing had stalled and the
Mm.
floodgate opened up all over again. And so I'm writing. I got about 4 songs that I'm working on right now, that I'm writing, just trying to figure out how they're going to go. And nothing sounds the same. That's how I know it's not a black thing or a white thing. It's just for the people,
Mm.
no matter what you look like. And then I'll admit, I even prayed the other day. I said, okay, God, you gave me the ability to speak Spanish and I do English as a second language. So birth a Spanish song in me. Then we gonna get the nations. We're gonna go pull everybody. Everybody need a little bit of Jesus. And I'm gonna do it in Spanish too.
You're gonna give him a little bit of Jesus in Spanish.
Yes.
You're gonna
Oh,
give him
Jesus. We're gonna give it to
hey,
him.
Jesus gonna come out of you. How
Yes.
can people reach you? How can they follow you on social media, and how can they get your music?
Social media, you can catch me at Imelda Music on Facebook. Instagram is at Miss Imelda one, the number one. And my music can be found on all streaming platforms: YouTube, Spotify, Apple, iTunes, everywhere. Amazon Music, it is everywhere. Just type in Imelda Shoffner and I'm going to pop up and download the music, stream it, buy it, whatever you feel you need to do. Go make it happen because it's going to bless your soul. And more is coming within the next month or two.
And then you can order some cake too. Now,
Yes, you can order some cake because my brother's girlfriend made me ship him a cake. So I guess I could ship you a piece of cake too. Yes.
as we wrap up, encourage someone who's on the verge of giving up on their dream and remind them why it's important to understand and know that they would never be defeated.
So first off, the Bible says that we are more than conquerors. Um, and you have to know that you know that you know that you're more than a conqueror. And sometimes dreams become deferred because a lot of times, yes, it was told to me at 12 that I should be a singer, I should pursue a singing career. It was prophesied to me over and over again, but it could not have happened before this season
Mhm.
because God had to mature me. So if your dream is not working out the way you think it should be working out, it may be because God is working something out in you so that you'll be able to handle the season. Because I believe that every season that we walk into, you know how the old saints say that heaven is a prepared place for prepared people? Well, your seasons are prepared places for you. And if you're not prepared for the season that you're going to go into, then it's going to fall apart. So I encourage you to not give up your dream, but you stop and listen to the voice of God. You hear what God is saying and you move how he tells you to move. And then make sure it's the voice of God that's telling you to do these things. Because sometimes we go out here and we're pursuing a dream that God may not have given you. It's what you want. And so it's trying to fit that square peg into a round hole. So don't force what is not meant for you. But if you know that this is what God has called you to and anointed and appointed you to, remember that is, as Ecclesiastes said, to everything there is a season. So you have to wait for your season. And while you're waiting, you keep preparing yourself for where you're going. Don't give up on your dream. You keep preparing yourself for the dream because when it happens, because what's going to happen, you're going to look up and it's going to be there and you're not going to even know how you got there. But you'll just be able to do a praise when you get there. So trust God. We like to say, trust the process, trust God, trust the process. And I promise you, it's going to work out for your good because here I am again. Being an artist was not on my bingo card, but here we are sitting at number 2 on the internet media based charts. And this was nothing that I ever thought would be a thing. But again, God knew what he wanted to do. And even though a seed was planted to make me give up on what God had been saying to me all along, I now trust him. And I now walk in what he said. So trust what God is doing. Believe what he's doing. If you know that you know within your innermost beings that this is what God said, everything doesn't happen overnight. But when it happens, it happens. Because again, 6 o'clock in the morning doesn't get here fast. You sleep through the night. And then you wake up, oh, it's 6 o'clock. And sometimes as your season progresses, you be like, wait a minute. This is what I've been waiting for. And you're walking in it. So just trust God. He's going to take you right to where you need to be. And it's going to be amazing when you get there.
Amazing.
Amazing.
I have really enjoyed this conversation with you. Thank you so much for hanging out with me on the Carl B. Phillips Show. Again, guys, go out and pick up her music. Imelda Shoffner.
Shoffner. Mm-hmm.
I got it right. Okay.
You did.
Get her music. Go follow her on social media and check out them cakes. Yeah, those cakes look good. Mm-hmm. I always like to close by saying this. Remember to work like you don't need the money, love like you've never been hurt, and dance like no one's watching you, and realize you'll never be defeated. God bless until we have a chance to meet again.
The Carl B. Phillips Show is produced by Carl B. Phillips for Prove Me Productions. For more information about Carl B. Phillips, visit carlbphillips.com. Subscribe to The Carl B. Phillips Show on YouTube or your favorite podcast outlet.